Hey YouTube, how you guys doing? My name is Kyle, you know me as Dragonmar, and welcome to a new video. Today guys, we're going to be talking about a ranked mindset. This is the mindset that I used and the mindset I have and still have to this day in all of my competitive games, but specifically Valorant. It's what I use to solo queue to Radiant. I call it the rule of thirds. You're going to see why in a moment. This is something I've touched on in the past, but I think it's worth going over again and going into more detail because this is an answer to a lot of people's questions about how they should look at the game. So I think it's worth going over and it's worth discussing. I think this is going to be very useful to a lot of you watching. So if you guys do enjoy the video, hey, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe for more. Let me know what you want to see next, and let's get started with the video. What is a mindset? You might be asking. I think a lot of people have a rough idea, but it is good that I go over right now in the beginning, just so you guys know exactly what I mean. When I'm talking about mindset, I'm talking about your perspective on the game. It's the way you look at the game and your journey through the game. It's how you process information, and it's how you handle and then do something with that information. This is how you handle losses. This is how you handle winning, deranking, all of that kind of stuff. And the mindset I'm about to explain is essentially my way, the way I've wired my brain to handle playing Valorant in what I feel like is a very simple but very effective strategy, because it really helps limit the amount of negatives, which I think is the thing that people struggle with most, is limiting the negative. People hyper focus on those, and that really stunts their growth as a player. So that's my goal here, and that's what I mean when I talk about a mindset. Now, on to the rule of thirds. This is what I call it. Obviously, I don't know what the right way to say this is, and this, I want to really explain this because I want people to understand that the numbers I give are just very rough estimates. They're not exact. That's not how you're supposed to look at this. This is a mindset, not a statistical probability of X, Y, and Z. Okay, the rule of thirds is very simple. You'll lose a third of your games, you'll win a third of your games, and you'll make the difference in the remaining third of your games. Okay, very simple. That is what I call the rule of thirds. That is my mindset when playing Valorant and when playing a lot of competitive games. It essentially boils down to this: there are games that are going to be completely out of your control that you will not be able to win. There are games that pretty much regardless of what you do in that game, as long as you're actively participating, you are going to win that game. And then there's the remaining amount of games where the way you play, the way you conduct yourself, and your contribution to your team in those games is the difference between winning and losing. And that is the main focus of all of your energy, is on that remaining third, not on the prior two. And that is what the rule of thirds is. That is the mindset that I use to solo queue to Radiant. And I'm going to get more into that now. Let's talk about the first part of that, which is you're going to lose a third of your games. Everybody knows this. You are going to lose games. This is no secret. And I think one of the strangest things to me is a lot of people almost seem surprised that they're losing a lot of games, as if they expect to have like a 90% win rate, which would skyrocket them in rank to the absolute peaks of player performance and be unheard of. Everyone think you're cheating, right? There is no world in which you are winning every single one of your games 90%, 80%, 70%, not even close. Those are unheard of even in almost in the world of sports, unless you're one of the very top teams, right? But in a game like Valorant, where there is so much that's out of your control, you are not going to win that often. And that is why it's so important, like I said, to understand that you're going to lose 1/3 of your games pretty much no matter what happens. And that's okay. As soon as you click that play button, good chance that that game is going to be a loss, right? There's a good chance, a third, right? 33%, 0.33, repeating, of course, right? And I think that's really important. And like I said, don't think about the numbers too much. That's not the point. The point is you're not supposed to put that much energy into overanalyzing what happens, into, trying to think too hard. Sometimes the answer to the question of what happened in that game is we got outplayed. And you don't have to think too much further into that, because a lot of times what people will do is they'll look at their teammates for things to blame, or they'll blame themselves. I've talked about this in my VOD reviews, how to analyze yourself. But sometimes there are games where even after that analysis, you're still kind of scratching your head and you're like, I don't really understand what we were supposed to do differently there. Sometimes the skill in the enemy team is going to outmatch yours so severely that there is just no chance you're going to win. And sometimes this is because of things like, for example, you might be playing a Smurf. You might have had a disconnect on your team. You might have disconnected yourself. There might have been a few crucial rounds that had just a really unfortunate set of circumstances that caused you to lose, and then you lose the game. There are things that happen that are sometimes completely out of your control for the reason you lose these games. And the point I'm trying to make with this rule and with this mindset is that you should try your best to not focus too much energy on these losses, because it's only going to bring down your mental, your mental attitude towards the game and cause you to tilt further, right? What's good is to move past these and understand, okay, this was a game we were going to lose. Let's move on to the next one. Now that we've discussed, obviously, the losing third, let's talk about the winning third. So again, the rule of thirds, the next third here, is that you are going to win roughly a third of your games, almost with regardless of what you're going to contribute. Now, obviously, you're still playing, you're still trying, you're still an active participant. But again, like I said with losing, in this third of games, you might have an extremely good teammate. They could be a Smurf, right? That is just going to carry you regardless. You might be playing against people who are maybe having a really rough day. They might be tilted, they might be fighting, someone might disconnect in the other team, and regardless, you are probably going to win that game. These are games, where you have a 90% chance to win the second you lock agents in, right, without even realizing it. Obviously, this is all, these numbers you're not going to see these numbers, right? These are completely hypothetical, but we all kind of have experienced this, I think. Sometimes you could just tell, sometimes after the first few rounds, the way the enemy team is shooting, the way they're playing, their movement, you could be like, oh, these guys aren't that good. And you can kind of feel things out. But regardless, a third of your games you're going to win. And again, the point here is you're not focusing too much of that energy on these games. You don't overthink it. You don't try to replicate too much of what happened. Yes, you won. Yes, you probably kicked their ass, but that's not the focus for you. You want to focus on that remaining third, and that's what we're going to get into next. The final third of the rule of thirds of the mindset needed to solo queue to Radiant is, of course, you're the difference maker. You are going to be the one in this remaining third of games that is going to be the difference between winning and losing. This is where all of the pressure is on you. This is where you need to be the most critical of yourself. This is where you need to be at your absolute best to be able to perform in these games. With the other 2/3 of games, you throw those behind you, right? You say, okay, we're going to lose those. We're going to win these. Great. This is where I need to shine. This is where I need to perform. And this is where you dedicate all of that mental energy. And this is where the mindset comes into play, because you sometimes can get so focused on those other, 2/3 of your games that when you finally get into a game like this, you're unable to realize that this was a game where you were the difference maker. This was a game where you were supposed to be the one to step up, where you had, this round in this position with this many players, where if you would have just made that shot, if you just made the right call or used the right utility, you would have won that round and probably won the game. We have all had these games. I cannot tell you the amount of times where I have missed a shot on a player only for them to absolutely destroy the rest of my team and we go on to lose, right? These are the games I'm talking about. And the reason that this mindset is so important is because it allowed me to look at my career, all my games, and be like, okay, these games were lost, these games were won. What did I do in these games wrong? Or what did I do in these games right? Because those were the games where I had the most impact or the most opportunity to have an impact to be able to change the outcome. And that's what we care about. We care about the games where we can change the outcome. In some games, like I said, you will not be able to. You are either going to win or lose those pretty much regardless of what you do. And remember, I want you guys to take all of this with a grain of salt. The numbers I'm using, 33%, could be 20%, could be 40% for some people. It's very, very different. I would say the lower you go in rank, probably the more games you can affect the outcome of, just because the overall quality of players is poor or is lower. But regardless, this mindset is so useful, because you do not focus your time and energy on games that are essentially unwinnable or unlosable, but instead you focus all of it on the games that are the ones you make the difference in. And I think that's why it was so useful to me and so important. It was a great use of my time and energy, and also really helped me not tilt by worrying about games that I had no control over. So there you have it. The rule of thirds is exactly like it sounds, right? You're going to lose a third of your games, you're going to win a third of your games, and then you're going to make a difference in that remaining third. Now, I want to say a few things to this. First and foremost, this was just my mindset. This isn't the best. This isn't the greatest, but it's something that I think works really well, and it's an interesting way to look at the game. And I think a lot of people do look at it like this to some degree, even if they don't maybe say it or think it themselves. A lot of you guys watching right now are probably thinking, oh yeah, I kind of do think about Valorant like that. If so, I think that's a really, really good thing. But a lot of people do not look at the game like this, and instead they think that they can win every single game they play, and that is just not the case. That is such a destructive and sort of it's just not the right way to look at it, because it's just not ever going to be true. You know, I don't think there's really any player in the game, maybe like tens or something, who is going to be able to affect the outcome of the game in every single match they go into, right? It's just not possible. I'm not good enough. I know that for sure. And that is the whole point, is that nobody is going to be good enough to change the outcome in every game. So focus your time and energy on figuring out what happened and what went right and wrong in that final third of games. And that's where you're going to see the most growth. That's where you're going to see the most improvement, because you're focusing on the things that matter most when you're trying to improve yourself. And this also, you know, comes down to improving yourself in the game as well. Now, of course, I always want people to be learning and trying and, you know, trying to win. Obviously, there's if you find yourself in a game where you think you're going to lose, stop, right? You don't know until the game is over, but after the game, that's when you could think about it. Be like, oh yeah, this was, you know, this and this happened. That was out of my control. Or you might win a game that you thought you were going to lose, and you look back and like, oh, well, actually my teammate ended up getting 35 kills in you know, 16 rounds, right? And you're like, oh yeah, we probably were going to win that one regardless. And then that remaining third, again, that's what you're focusing on, because that's where the growth comes from. That's where you're able to be like, okay, on this round, I messed up. Or on this round, I made a huge play that allowed us to, you know, get this position. We go on to win because of that. And I think that a lot of times the questions I get, people come to me and they're like, okay, what do I focus on? How do I know what to do next? You know, how do I know what to look at or what I need to improve? And the problem is they're looking at all of these games, you know, every part of that third I was telling you about, all three of them, instead of just focusing on the final one where they can maybe more pinpoint clearly what's happening. And that's the whole goal here, is clarity. Is this mindset really helps throw out that 66% of trash and just take in that 33% of gold that you really need to analyze and you know, further develop. And guys, I think that's really all I had to say about this. The mindset of thirds, the rule of thirds. 30 of your games you lose, 30 you win. The final third, you make the difference, and that's where you focus your effort on. And a reminder, just because I'm saying a third doesn't mean it's really a third of your games. It's, you know, for everybody it's going to be different, absolutely. And I hope you guys realize that as well. I was just using that, you know, as a hypothetical, because I think it's probably pretty close to accurate, at least in my own experience. But regardless of that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hey, leave a like, comment. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this. Is this a mindset you have? Have you ever felt this way as well? Is this completely new to you? What do you think? And if you did enjoy the video, hey, hit that subscribe button. We got new videos coming soon. Thanks so much for watching. Take it easy and peace.